It's the Uprising.
This is the Uprising podcast. We are interviewing Kojo Asamoa-Caesar. He is running for first Congress in Oklahoma. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Adam. I appreciate it.
No problem. He is a Democrat. He is a progressive. And I definitely want to get his perspective, know his platform, where he comes from, and everything around those things, because it is really important for people that want change to get elected in my eyes. So, and this is why I'm interviewing him. I think he's a change candidate. So, Mr. Kojo, the voice is yours. Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, why you ran or running for Congress, and anything else you want to say when it comes to that?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the platform and opportunity to speak. So my name is Kojo Asamoa-Caesar. I am a husband. Right? Me and my wife celebrate our 4-year wedding anniversary tomorrow, actually, on June 4th. So excited about that. I'm a father to a newborn baby, Odessa baby girl. I'm a son. My parents are immigrants from Ghana, West Africa, and came to America in search of the American dream. And because of their decisions, I had the opportunity to be born in America, to live here, to attend great public schools. I'm a proud product of public schools. All right. And then after graduating from college, had the opportunity to go to law school. So I attended law school in Virginia at the College of William and Mary, which is the oldest law school in the country. And, after law school, was really searching for purpose, right? And to make meaningful change, and not just to go practice law and make money because it was the next thing to do. And so I decided I was going to become a teacher and go into education, because education had made such a big difference in my life and helping me to climb the escalator, if you will, to the American dream. And so I signed up for a program called Teach for America. And I told them I want to be a kindergarten teacher because there are not enough Black men teaching in early childhood education. And I want to go where the need is highest. And so they said, okay. And they sent me to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so I ended up in Tulsa, Oklahoma as a kindergarten teacher, teaching in North Tulsa, which is historically a Black community where Black Wall Street was located, but has since been decimated, and high poverty, low income community. And so I got to learn about this community through the eyes of kindergartners, and trying to serve them and their parents and their families, and trying to make a change. And it changed my life and transformed, my outlook and my view. And that's what I've been. And so it's just been about, how do we build community that are self-sustaining, and that have the resources and the assets to be able to ensure that all residents can achieve their full potential, right? And so that's the mission that I've been on. And now I find myself here, and this seems like an appropriate next step to try to help make change and ensure that all Americans have a shot at their American dream, that the ideals found in our founding documents, right, that we're all created equal, and that we have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that can be within reach for all of us. And so that's why I'm running for Congress, to try to make that a reality.
And do you feel like it was a vacuum of misleadership, and you feel like you needed to step up and make change?
Yes, definitely. Being in Oklahoma and seeing that we're ranked number one in all the wrong things, right? And at the bottom of all the right things. And so, we're first in the nation, or we're, first in the nation in incarceration. So we incarcerate more men and women than any other state in the union. And yet we're at the bottom of, education funding, right? So we're not funding our schools. And we've created this school to prison pipeline. And so that is not, how it should be. We have millions of people who don't have access, right, to healthcare. Um, and in the community that I live in, it's a food desert. And so from the center of town, within a 5 mile radius, there's not a single grocery store, right? Um, and so you start to see all these things, and they become inhibitors to people being able to achieve, the American dream. Um, you know, we're not paying people a living wage, and families are having to work multiple jobs just to make ends meet. All right. And so you start seeing all these things, and you say there is a huge leadership vacuum. There are groups of people that are just ignored, right? And we need people to step up and to lift our voices and to say, let's do right by all our citizens, and that when we all succeed, right?
Hmm.
Not a dog eat dog game. We can all thrive.
Yeah. All right. So let's unpack that. So are you a proponent for Medicare for all or a public option?
So yeah, so I am advocating for universal health care, right?
Mhm.
In the richest country, on the
Yeah.
planet. Um, no one should go bankrupt just because they get sick. All right.
Yeah.
My own mother, who came here in pursuit of the American dream and wanted to be a healthcare provider, at the age of 40, she was close to finishing her degree. She suffered a stroke. All right.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and she spent, few months in the hospital, racked up, an insane amount of bills, and couldn't really pay, and literally went bankrupt, and had to kind of leave the country to go back home to Ghana to recover, right? And so, like, her life and my life would be a lot different if we had universal health care, if we had Medicare for all, right? Now I understand I am running in Oklahoma, right? Um, and
Mhm.
and I'm running for Congress, and I'm going to be one of 435 members if I win.
Yeah.
And based on who's president, and hopefully it's going to be a Democratic president,
Mhm.
we have to convince our fellow, right, citizens and fellow members that Medicare for all is the right way to go. But short of that, at the very least, let's try to get universal health care and get everybody covered, right? And so,
Mhm.
however we can get there, I am willing to get there. If we get
Yeah.
there through Medicare for all, that's awesome, right? But if there are other means to getting there, let's get there,
Mhm.
and ensure that, in the greatest country on earth, you don't, go bankrupt just because you get sick, or when you get sick, you're more concerned about how you're going to pay, right, for healthcare rather than the actual sickness, right, that you
Yeah.
have.
And with people saying the cost, how we're gonna pay for it, what would
Right.
you be a rebuttal with that rebuttal?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just always find it funny the refrain, how are you going to pay for it? Because when it comes to cutting taxes for the wealthy, nobody ever asks how we're going to pay for it, right? When it comes to, going to fight in these endless wars, nobody asks how you're going to pay for it, right? We keep, increasing our military budget, um, and nobody bats an eye. So I reject that premise of, oh, like, we cannot afford to do this, right? We cannot afford to take care of our citizens, and it is okay for us to cut taxes for the wealthy and send men and women off to die in endless wars. But when it comes to ensuring that we're healthy, we have a problem with that, right? And so it's a matter not of how we're going to pay for it. It's a matter of what are our values and what are our priorities, right? And if we are a society that values, human life and values each other, and we want to be a thriving democracy where we value the work ethic and we value people actually being able to go and work and contribute to our economy, then we will find a way to ensure that um, we join the rest of the developed world in ensuring that our citizens, have quality, affordable healthcare.
Yeah. What do you think that certain people in the Democratic Party want a means tested kind of public option? And why do you think that Medicare for all is better than the public option or the current Obamacare that we have currently?
Yeah, I mean, I think Medicare for all just really simplifies our system, and puts forth the value proposition that healthcare is not something that we should be seeking a profit of, right?
Mhm.
And it eliminates the middleman, right, of our insurance companies who are profit driven, right? And the way they operate runs counter to a system that is um, concerned with the health of human beings, right? um, and so Medicare for all is the way to go. And Medicare system right now has shown to be very popular. Even Republicans will say, "Don't touch my Medicare." Right?
Mhm.
So we have a program that's already working. It's just a matter of expanding it and extending it to all Americans, and really taking out that middleman. Now, I don't. I mean, we live in a democracy, and you don't just automatically get 100% of what you want,
Mhm.
right? So you can't be inflexible. You have to, fight for what you believe in, but be willing to listen to others and try to find a pathway forward, right? And so, although I think Medicare for all is the best way forward, I am willing to not make the perfect the enemy of the good, and work with fellow members to arrive at a place of universal coverage, and try to limit the harm that those other options, right, inflict.
Yeah. So you saying that Medicare for all healthcare should be a human right, essentially. So one of my big things of this show, one of my big philosophies is you are your brother's keeper, and we should look out for our fellow citizens.
Right.
We're such a individualized country right now, and we used to be more of a collective. What is the ways that you think that we can, as a country, become more of a collective again?
Yeah, I mean that's a very very good question, and something that we all see. Right, seems as if our country is coming apart at the seams, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, we have a president who spends every day seeking to stoke divisions, right, and pit one group against another for his own selfish interest, right, and gain.
Mhm.
Um, and unfortunately we have a splintered society, and we don't live in the same neighborhoods, or we live in segregated neighborhoods and communities. And you can basically go a week without seeing somebody who looks different from you. You can consume media that confirms your own bias, right? And you don't get to hear the other point of view, right? Or points of views that are different from yours, or disagreeing with you. And so we need to really change all that, right? And it starts with each of us, and it starts with our own spheres of influence, right? And asking ourselves the question, how many people are in my circle and in my own sphere of influence who have a different outlook than I do, who look different from me, right? Who grew up, in a different place than I did, maybe different socioeconomic status, right? Um, and I actually heard, a fellow Republican asked a question. He said, how, um, when was the last time you had dinner in your home with somebody who's of a different race than you are, right? Or with somebody who's of a different party than you are, right? And a lot of folks will can't remember when the last time was. They might say, "Oh, I have a friend who's a different race than me, or a friend who is of the opposite party," but they don't remember the last time they actually had dinner, together, right?
Mhm.
And so it starts there, and then we have to, there's a quote that I really like, says, "I would rather be divided by truth than united in error," right? And
Wow.
so we
Okay.
need to be united, but we also need to be united in the right way, under the right banner, right? And
Mhm.
so I'm not willing to be united, but throw out my values just for the sake of unity. right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so fight for what we believe in, understand the common humanity we all share, and try not to be inflexible and try to listen, and see what we can make happen.
Yeah. So where do you think the failures of the Trump administration when it comes to that, the divisionness he's created, and how do you feel he's handled the last week and a half?
Oh my lord, where do we start? I mean, he came down the escalator, right? And that first speech he gave, announcing his candidacy, was about division. It was about calling, names and lying and things I won't even repeat, right?
Yeah.
And he used Twitter and he used the bully pulpit, right, to stoke divisions,
Mhm.
and to, you know, give dog whistles and to give liberty for white supremacists and extremist groups to come out the shadows and spew hate, and so he has just been um, a divisive president, unlike anyone that we've seen in modern history, right? And I've also been very disappointed in the Republican Party, and how they've just stood by and acquiesced and watched them, just break democratic norm after democratic norm. And I just wonder, where's the courage, where's the backbone, where's the party that once used to say they believed in family values, right? Where's the party that said they believed in having good role models and leaders with high character and moral integrity, right? I don't see that party. That party has disappeared. Or maybe they never believed it in the first place. So these are questions that I'm asking myself, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, and the president has had opportunity after opportunity to bring this country together, to be the healer in chief. After Charlottesville, he had the opportunity to condemn white supremacy, right? And he didn't. He called, he said both sides had good people, right? And basically gave license to people to spew hate. And this weekend, right? What's going on in our nation, and a time where we need leadership and we need somebody to bring us together and bring healing, right? He has, just been on Twitter talking about when the looting starts, the shooting starts, basically threatening protesters with, violence. He's talked about, protesters in Washington, D.C., that they're gonna unleash dogs and ominous weapons on them. And, he just to have a photo op in front of a church, he, had the police tear gas and shoot rubber bullets at peaceful protesters, right? So he has failed, in my opinion, at every step of the way, which is why we need to ensure that we are registered to vote, that we are ready to vote, that we turn out in huge numbers, at the ballot box to register our dissatisfaction, and to tell this president that this is not America. This is not where we're trying to go. We want to go forward, not backwards, right? And so my hope is that people will turn out to vote, and vote this president out of office, and that we can turn the page on this dark time in our history, and try to put the pieces back together and create a new normal in our country.
Yeah, I think our president doesn't realize he's president sometimes, and even if he doesn't mean certain things, his words matter. Like he
Mhm.
said, I didn't mean shoot looters and everything, but you said like that initially. You said that, and even
Right.
if you don't mean that, well, your words matter. You're not a reality star person anymore. You're the president, so
Right.
your words affect people and either incite certain people or terrify other people. And like you're saying, he needs to be a leader. I've been very disappointed in our president, especially of this moment. I mean, he has had this year hasn't been easy for anyone. I don't envy him in this terrible scenario, but he, and just not just him, our Congress, our Senate, our entire government really has
Mhm.
really failed the people in my eyes. And this is not a right left thing, it's both in my eyes. And
Right.
We need either side. We need a really strong opposition party, and I don't think we have that currently. I
Mm.
think Nancy Pelosi has let the people down as well, and I think a lot of people in the Democratic Party need to be replaced with people not necessarily even agree with probably what you and I agree with, just people that are leaders and actually do things and just not say things. I think our president has caused a lot of division. I think our media has caused a lot of division as well. It's just a really dark time in this country. A lot of people are really scared, and I don't blame them, honestly. And what do you have to say to that?
Yeah, I mean, you're right about a lot of what you say. We all have to take responsibility, right?
Hmm.
Can't just be as much as I think this president has been, divisive and has failed time and time again to try to bring us together. Um, it's not just about him, right?
Yeah.
This is not just about let's remove Trump and all our problems are solved, right? It's not about let's return to normalcy and it's all good, right? Because the way things were before Trump weren't exactly the best of times either, right? And so we have to realize that. And as Democrats, we have to take responsibility as well.
Mhm.
And we have to say, we are going to stand for the right values. We're going to be authentic. We're going to tell the truth, right? And we're going to do our damnness to bring people together and to lead this country forward, to create a new normal, right? The
Mhm.
kind of normal that we can all get behind, and the kind that is not just going to allow the pendulum to keep swinging, right, wildly from one end of the spectrum to the other, right?
Mhm.
And this country is thirsting for that. And so I agree with you. We need that kind of leadership, and we need voices calling for that. And it's up to us as citizens as well, right? It's a quote about us, deserving the democracy that we get and the kind of leaders that we get. And a lot of times, our leaders are a reflection of us, right? And so our leaders need to lead us, but we also need to, push and to try to be the change that we want to see as citizens.
I think a lot of people they they're scared, so they listen to politicians try to fearmonger the other side, and that's on both sides. They do this.
Yeah.
I think people need to start one researching information
Yeah.
themselves and stop getting their news from just one source as well and
Right.
just one side because it's just cheerleading on one side and cheerleading on the other side. I think our mainstream media has completely failed us when it comes to that. A lot of things I think I'm been very frustrated for just this scared, frustrated, angry
Mhm.
um, this year and lately. I just feel like there's so much vacuum of leadership. I think people are resorting to their worst tendencies, and some people are wanting justice in this country and thinking that they haven't been represented from this government for so long, and they're
Right.
tired of it,
Right.
especially the Black community with the unfortunate murder of Mr. Floyd
Right.
and all the other unfortunate murders by police departments across the country.
Right.
So I uh, I think we do need police reform. How do you feel about this? How do you think we can make policing safer and better for both our communities um, and make their jobs safer and easier as well?
Yeah. Well, we have to understand history. History matters, right? We didn't just arrive here yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't just arrive here 8 years ago or 10 years ago. Sometimes we have amnesia and we don't want to go all the way back, but we have to go all the way back, right? To slavery, and to a time after, when, we ended slavery. but didn't really give um, the folks who were formerly enslaved, right, didn't give them equal opportunity, all right. And so you say you're free and walk off the plantation, but I don't have a job. I don't have any means. I don't have any property. The government promising me 40 acres and a mule, right? They reneged on it, and so what are you supposed to do? And then the society criminalizing, right, being black after releasing, slaves, and so you kind of have the idea and the concept of policing coming out of this time, right? Where police are the overseers and police are, basically trying to protect white property owners, right, from formerly enslaved Africans, right?
Mm.
And so it comes through there, and then we go through Reconstruction and Jim Crow,
Mm.
and we go through the failed war on drugs, and Nixon and Law and Order, and criminalizing whole Black communities, and over policing Black communities, right? And so all of that brings us here, and so from a policy perspective, we have to end the failed war on drugs, right? We have to decriminalize and legalize marijuana, right?
Mm.
We have, marijuana is now legal in a lot of states, and yet there are still many Black and brown citizens who are in prison serving time, right, unfairly. Our studies show, right, Black people and brown people don't use drugs, right, at different rates than white people, and yet we are incarcerated more often than white people are, right?
Yeah.
And if you over police a community, right, if you're in the Black neighborhood, then you are going to arrest Black and brown people, right, who you catch using drugs, instead of going to the white community where folks are using drugs as well and snorting cocaine as well, right? But the police are not there to see it, and do anything about it. So we have to do that. End the war on drugs. Quit over policing Black communities. Right. End mass incarceration. Right. Where in a place like Oklahoma, right, we have overwhelmingly Black and brown people in prison, and you are decimating whole communities. Right. My students that I taught, right, so many of them, right, where one parent was incarcerated, so they were living in a single parent household, right? That limits the income that comes to that household, um, and it's causing single parent has to work multiple jobs, and so it's not able to spend time with kids, right? And kids are going through traumatic, experiences because of this. And then there's the school to prison pipeline, and recycling kids, from schools to prisons. And that is just immoral. And you also it allows this distrust to fester, all right? And so how can there be trust from the Black community and the police when we see this system operating the way it's operating, right? And then finally, we have to honor the human dignity, right, of every citizen, and ensure that if a police officer kills an unarmed Black person, that we try them to the fullest extent of the law, and that there are consequences for that, right? And so that has to happen, and hopefully, what we're seeing in the protests all around the country, and a lot of people becoming awake, to these injustices, hopefully that can lead to real reform.
Yeah. Uh, so in the war on drugs, legalize marijuana. So I'm assuming if uh, it was a bill in the House for legalized marijuana, you would vote for that.
Oh, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely.
Yeah. We have medical marijuana in this state,
All
which
right.
is progress, but it should be federally legalized in my eyes.
And that should tell you something, right? That should tell you something, that in Oklahoma, in the reddest of red states, right?
Mhm.
And we are the reddest of red states. It's the only state where, Barack Obama didn't win a single county, right? The Democrats have not won a single county, in presidential elections in the last 3 cycles.
Hmm.
Um, and yet still, right, citizens overwhelmingly voted to, all right, legalize medical marijuana. And I believe if recreational marijuana were on the ballot, people would vote to legalize that as well.
Yeah.
And so it tells you that people realize that we need to, this is long overdue, and we need to make it happen. And it needs to also happen at the federal level as
Okay, so let's hit on locally. How do you feel um, our mayor has handled the situation that's going on in our country currently? And do you think that his certain resolutions with activists are enough, or do you think he needs to go further?
well. Well, one, I just want to begin by giving a big shout out to the community activists, right, and
Hmm.
leaders who went out there and peacefully protested, all right, and called for change. And over 1,000 people from all backgrounds, all races, marching in the streets, calling for change, and that was awesome to see. And clearly, it was effective because they got the attention of our decision makers and the mayor, and so that was awesome. And then yesterday, seeing um, was it yesterday or 2 days ago, seeing the mayor actually agree to meet with the leaders and
Hmm.
organizers of that protest. And to his credit, engaging in a very genuine and frank conversation about their demands.
Hmm.
And so that was great to see. And it was great progress, and then agreeing to end right live PD contract, which was one of the demands that activists, were
Hmm.
making in our community, have been making for a while. And so I just want to, you have to take those wins when you can
Hmm.
and applaud, right,
Yeah.
leaders when they take those steps, while at the same time letting them know that those are only steps, right? And they have to lead to somewhere, right? So that's just one step in the right direction. Let's keep going. Let's keep building momentum. And so he's agreed to meet with the activists over the next 2 weeks to, hash out the rest of the demands. And so I'm looking forward to that. And if he reaches the right conclusions, I'm going to applaud him. And if he fails to do that, and then we're going to call him out and challenge him. All right.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we all love this city and we want to see it be the best that it can be. We want it to be a place where we can all live together harmoniously and raise our family, right? I want my daughter to grow up in a community where she's loved and respected and has equal rights, right? And knows that she's not going to die unjustly at the hands of the people who are sworn to protect her.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in that like we were saying, new leadership brings better change. I think our mayor's done better than past mayors. I mean, I don't agree with most of his politically, but I think he's done better than other people. And I
Right,
think our roads are improving and things like that. I think he's handled the situation a lot better than probably other leaders would have.
right. I agree with that.
In other parts of the country haven't handled the situation. Mayors and governors hasn't handled the situation very well in
Mhm.
my eyes. So do you think one of the things that could heal this city when it comes to the Black Wall Street massacre is accepting our past as a city and starting to help focus on the North community? Because I feel like it's kind of the lost part of our town. Our schools are not very well funded. The roads are terrible, and like you said, the high school to prison pipeline. If people don't have opportunities, poverty leaves a crime in my eyes. And what are the ways that you think our leaders in this city, and if you become a leader in this city, would want to change those things?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have the 100-year anniversary coming next year,
Mhm.
and it is a great opportunity to fully acknowledge what happened, right? So I think there needs to be that, like, and I think we're getting to that. And this mayor has done a lot in speaking openly about what happened, right, 99 years ago. And so we have to acknowledge what happened, as a city and take full responsibility, right? Let's not do this whole I wasn't here and so I'm not responsible and those were those people and we are new people. You have to take responsibility, right, for what happened. Um, and and then I think we have to apologize, right? Whenever there's a breach in a relationship, um, you need to acknowledge the wrongdoing and then you need to apologize. Just like if you're in a relationship with a significant other, right? You have to apologize. After acknowledging what happened, then you apologize for what happened, right? Because what you're trying to do is restore the relationship, right? And so I think the Black folks in North Tulsa, which was formerly Black Wall Street, deserve a long overdue apology from our leaders and from our government, right, and from the institution that of Tulsa that helped perpetrate this wrong on the community, right? And so that's acknowledgement and apology, and then there's three A's, and the last A is atonement, right? And so you have to atone for the wrong that you did, right? This is all part of restoring the breach and restoring the relationship, and these three A's are a lot more. Sometimes people say, why are we going back and why are we looking back? It's actually a lot more about the future than it is about the past, right? If we want to move forward and build this 21st century city of the future, right, then we have to do this, right? Because we can't build that future, with two Tulsas. It has to be one Tulsa, right? And so you have to atone for it. And so we have to find a way to atone for that wrong, because there are consequences, right, that come from what happened in the past. Our schools are not looking the way they're looking for no reason, right? Our community is segregated till this day. There's train tracks, right, that separate North Tulsa from the rest of Tulsa, right? Even the streets, right? MLK Boulevard, right, is only on the Black side of town, right? And when you get to the white side of town, it changes to Cincinnati, right? So that in itself tells you we don't have one Tulsa. We haven't fully acknowledged our history. We haven't apologized, and we haven't done the thing to atone, right, for those wrongs. And so that's gonna ensure that the divisions linger, that the distrust lingers, right? So I'm not surprised, and nobody should be surprised that there's division, that there's mistrust, right? And we need real leadership and bold, courageous leadership to do those things, because those things are controversial, right? But that's why we need leaders, right? If leadership was easy, everybody would do it, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's a great answer. So investment in schools, is that one of the things you would want to?
Investment in schools, investment not just in our kids, but also the adults, because the adults are the ones who are taking care of the kids, right? And so we need to invest in economic development. We need to ensure that parents can, work meaningful jobs, be paid a living wage, right? So they don't have to work 2-3 jobs just to make ends meet. They don't have to work, be taken away from their kids, right, for all hours of the day just so they can put food on the table for those kids, right? So education is important, economic development is important, right? Justice and equity is important, a whole lot of things. And then the symbolic things like tearing down the highway that separates, that was intentionally built right through the heart of the community. And changing street signs, right, to signal that this is one Tulsa, not different Tulsa and segregated Tulsa. So.
Yeah. So with other areas of the town, what do you feel that we need to do about the drug problem with like the heroin and opioid overdoses and things like that?
Yeah, a lot of times, there's a quote that I heard that says there's a spiritual cause for every physical ailment, right? And so when I see the opioid, epidemic that's happening, it's not just about quote unquote drug problem, right? It's a problem of hopelessness and helplessness, right? It's a problem of people having lost jobs, people feeling like their lives are not meaningful, that they've lost the bonds, right, of relationship and community, right? They've lost the dignity of being able to work and provide for their families and feel like I have something to wake up for. And so they're searching for answers, and sometimes and a lot of times in the wrong places. And then you end up, getting hooked on drugs, right? Or sometimes, it's pain and you're trying to, self-medicate, and then you end up, getting addicted. And unfortunately, these drug companies and pharmaceutical companies have played a role in that, in pushing drugs that they knew people were going to get addicted to, right? And so that's criminal, and I'm glad to see that they're being prosecuted and they're having to pay for that. And we need to use that money and those judgments that are being, you know, ruled against them. We need to use those resources to go towards fixing our communities, right? And whether it's rehab centers and getting people, well and better, right? And getting them, back on the right footing. All that needs to happen. And also, I think it's interesting, and I think it's a positive development that we're seeing the current drug epidemic, as a health crisis, right? As a public health crisis instead of a criminal issue, right? Because that's what we did, in our history when it was Black and brown people who were using the drugs. We made it a war on drugs, and we criminalized those individuals. And a lot of people now see white people mostly getting hooked on these drugs, and now it's a public health crisis. So there is this sense of unfairness when it comes to that, but at the very least, that's where we should have always been. So we can acknowledge that that's where we should have always been, and we need to see it as a public health problem and treat it as such.
So speaking on hopelessness, I don't know if you're a millennial or not.
I am.
So so we both are millennials. I feel like our generation and the younger generation kind of feel like it's no hope for us, and our future's so bleak. What do you think things could give our generations hope for a positive change to change this country in a different way?
Man, yeah, I mean, that's a good point you bring up. As millennials, we've been through 9/11, right? Then we've been through the Great Recession, right, happening. And then we went through the election of Donald Trump. And then now we're going through a pandemic, a global pandemic. And then, police shootings and injustice and uprisings in cities all across the country. So we've been through quite a lot. And if you were hopeless, you can find reason, right, to be hopeless. Right? And but what we need to do, I think we are a generation that we are more civically minded than previous generations, right? And we are a generation that has been looking for purpose and has been looking for meaningful work, right? Which is why we're going to have at least 7 jobs, right, over the span of our career, because we're not just satisfied with being in the cubicle and working mindless jobs, right? And we are willing to leave and try to find something better. And so we have to use that to our advantage and to say we are not satisfied with the world that has been left to us by previous generations. We thank them for the great things that they did, but we need to fix the things that they messed up on, right? And it's up to us, right? And so if you're looking for meaning, well, what a time to find meaning, right? Because there's so much work to be done and so much that needs to be fixed, and nobody's going to fix it for us, right? Superman is not coming to save us, right?
Yeah.
And we are the ones we've been waiting for. And so, yes, we can be disappointed in previous generations. We can be disappointed in the world that has been left to us. But then we have to pick ourselves up and say, we are the ones we've been waiting for, and let me do something. And there's so much we can do. And we have so many tools, right? And technological tools and advancements, and so many ways to connect to one another, so many ways to, efficiently organize ourselves and, make a difference, right? And so that's what I'm preaching. I'm going to try to have a productive mindset, an empowering mindset, a mindset that says I retain control and what I do matters. And if I do that and you do that and we all do that, then it's gonna create a change and it's gonna make a difference.
I think this especially this year, and really opened my eyes that, like you're saying, Superman's not coming. We, as the people, need to affect real change.
Right.
And one of the good quotes I like is, "You cannot change the past, but you can make the future."
Yes.
And that's the thing. What do you think? One of the big divides between our generation, our parents, and kind of our grandparents' generation. I think one of them is they grew up with the policies of the New Deal with FDR, and a lot of them weren't satisfied with that, so they elected Ronald Reagan and Bush and Bill Clinton, and we grew up with Reaganomics and the offsprings of Reaganomics. So, what do you think can bring our different generations together, or is it just we need to make change for our generation, and we're not satisfied with our current political uh like Reaganomics of the offspring of Reaganomics, and we want change for different things, like the youngest, mostly young people wanted Bernie Sanders elected, and
Right.
his policies are similar to Bernie FDR. And
Right.
so, what do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, one, we need to vow not to. Now, this is not generational hate. I don't want to hate on, past
No, no,
generations.
oh no, no, I'm not saying that either. I'm not
Yeah,
saying
but
that
we
either.
need to vow not to be like, I feel like Generation X has been shortchanged, right? Because the baby boomers have stayed in power for so long, they just held on, right? And so Generation X is not careful. They're just going to be skipped right over because us millennials, we're not patient either, right? And we're coming up now and we're seeking leadership positions. And so we need to keep that energy, right? And that spirit of we're not just going to sit back and wait till the baton is passed to us. We have to snatch the baton, right? We have to snatch the baton and create the kind of world that we want. And you're right, it is a different world, right? And sometimes, you know, former generations look at us and say, well, just, go to school and go find a job. And, and you don't realize, well, I, I go to school and I have to get out student loans, right? And by the time I graduate, I'm drowning in debt. I can't just go start a business, right? And I have all this student loan debt. I can't just go start a business because I don't have health care, right? My health care is attached to a job, right? And there are not a lot of those. We're going through an economic downturn.
Yeah,
We don't have Medicare for all, right?
yeah,
And so yeah, and if I'm want benefits, then maybe I go find a job. But that job, prevents me from starting my own business, right? I'm having to pay, huge sums on my student loan, so I'm not able to save up money, right? And the nest egg. They say, we're the boomerang generation and we come back home. But, well, yeah, because, we're trying to get a solid footing because a lot of us came of age during an economic downturn.
mhm,
And so the former generations have to realize it's not the same world. And we're facing a different world and many different challenges that they had. And this is why a lot of us were in favor and supportive of Bernie Sanders' policies, right? Because we realized that government isn't the problem, right? Like Reagan said, government can actually be a part of the solution. And in times of great crisis, like after World War II or the Great Depression, right? FDR and the New Deal and being bold and, trying innovative ways to try to lift people up out of poverty, right? They all didn't work. The ideas weren't perfect, but FDR said, we're going to try one idea. And if it doesn't work, we're going to try another. And we're going to keep trying until we get it right. And that's the kind of spirit that I think, we should have. And we shouldn't criticize Bernie's policies for not being perfect, for not being fully vetted and how's he going to pay for it? And we don't have enough money, right? And in a sense, when this pandemic hit, we all realized that a lot of what Bernie was talking about was relevant, right? And we were in a place where the government felt there was a crisis and they needed to act quickly, and they didn't need not worry about how much does it cost, right? And so we were passing $1 trillion relief packages. Well, we have to realize that there are a lot of folks in our society who have been living in a pandemic like crisis state, right?
Mhm.
Where they don't know where their paycheck is going to come from, living paycheck to paycheck, right? It's hard to make ends meet. They don't have health care. They have loved ones who are sick and they're concerned for their health and their well being, like all these things. And so, just like we saw it fit to act swiftly and use government as a way to help people in this crisis, we should realize that that crisis exists for others, even outside of a pandemic reality, and government can serve the same purpose. And it ought to, because we are interconnected, right? And we see how essential a lot of employees are, a lot of folks that we took for granted, right? How essential they are. Childcare providers, right, are so essential because we can't have our economy moving and people going to work and our doctors going to the hospital if their kids are home, right? And there's nobody to care for them, right? So we live in this interconnected economy, and you can't just ignore a whole sector of the economy and cap all the benefits going to people at the top and think that you're going to thrive. And in this new 21st century economy, if we're going to keep up with China and all the other emerging economies, then we have to see our economy differently. We have to see our economic system differently, and we have to say, how do we ensure that everybody can thrive, right? Because if everybody has money in their pockets, then our consumer economy actually does well. Then people who start businesses have patrons who are going to come and buy, items in their shop, and all that. It's simple economics,
Yeah.
and I have full hope that our generation, once we get into power, we are going to see the wisdom of this, and we're going to be more civically engaged and not as selfish as some in the previous generation have been.
I think a lot of people don't realize that in the 50s and 60s, the marginal tax rate was 90, 80, 70%.
Right.
Um, do you think that we need to bring back strong unions, increase taxes? Like you said, I think smart government is the solution,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
bloated government. And I think a lot of people complain about the government because it's people just don't do anything because they're complacent and no one challenges their local officials. And how do you feel about that?
Well, I reject the notion that people are complacent in government. You look at our city government and our local governments, right?
Okay. Yeah.
They are the closest to the people. And for any city to thrive, you need strong local government, right? And so you
Yeah.
see local governments all across the country working for people, right? And ensuring that, streets are paved, and people have adequate transportation and water systems and, health systems. And so, like, government can be very effective, and we rely on government, right? And in times of crisis, we realize the ways in which we rely on government, right?
Hmm.
And yeah, in terms of unions, unions are, what has built our middle class, right?
Hmm.
It's what brought us the 40-hour work week and, safety regulations and, workplaces and, just empowering workers, right? When we've undermined our unions, that, that has tracked with income inequality, right? And most of the wealth going to the top, right? And CEO pay, are outpacing the pay of employees. I think it's like at over $400 to one, right? So unions play a huge role in building the middle class, and the middle class is shrinking as unions have shrunk, and so we need to empower our unions and empower our workers, right? Not to have some adversarial, unreasonable relationship with management, right?
Mhm.
But to promote fairness and to promote a democratic society that gets more equal rather than gets more unequal, right? So I support unions and building strong union laws. And unfortunately, in our state, right, we're a right to work state, and we don't empower unions the way we ought to, and that needs to change, and we need to fight for that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So Tesla was supposed to, we were one of the finalists for Tesla,
right.
and we all this everything going on, we kind of forgot about them. So how do you feel about, I don't know if even we were still even a finalist or not. I think they picked Austin, but even if they did pick us, how do you feel about Tesla coming here? And do you think we should ourselves, as a local government, invest in clean energy for local entrepreneurs?
Yes. Well, Um, I know it's potentially controversial with Tesla because they have a CEO and Elon Musk who is a controversial figure.
Mhm.
Um, for me, as a Tulsan who wants to see our city continue to grow economically and to progress, I think Tesla coming here is a great opportunity for our city, right? Economic development wise. And, I live in North Tulsa and I see a lot of, barren land and a lot of places where, manufacturing plant can be built.
Mhm.
And that can produce a lot of jobs, right? North Tulsa, East Tulsa, West Tulsa, where we need that, right? And so I think it's a great opportunity, and hopefully they haven't already picked Austin, and we're still in the running. And I would love for that to happen. But it also doesn't mean we just welcome them and we're just blind to everything. We have values. We want our workers to be treated fairly. We want our environment, right, to be clean and healthy for our citizens.
Yeah.
And here, we used to be the oil capital of the world, right? And we are moving towards a new kind of energy. That's the slogan for the city. And so this could be an opportunity to also say, this is what we're about. We're about, clean, renewable technology and energy, right? And Tesla, has shown itself to stand for that and be part of being on the forefront of that. And
Yeah.
so use it as an opportunity to move Tulsa forward in a new kind of way, and to say that we want to ensure that we are moving towards 100% renewable, clean energy and a healthy, clean planet for the next generation.
Yeah, I want Tesla to come here, but even if they don't, do you feel that we should still invest in
Yes,
clean energy,
yes.
and regardless of Tesla coming here or not, I think we
Yes,
should do
yes.
that.
Regardless of that, we ought to do that. And for me, at the federal level, one of the things that I'm advocating for, we need to rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement. All right,
Mhm.
because this is not just an American problem; it's a planetary problem. So we need to be working with the world to ensure that we're addressing this problem. We need to move to 100% clean, renewable energy in a time frame set by climate scientists. We need to listen to the scientists because, quite frankly, us politicians, we are not scientists, right? And we need to believe in science. And then we need to use it as an opportunity for economic development, right? It's kind of like the New Deal, right? And so we need our roads, right, to be rebuilt because they're crumbling, right? And rebuild our infrastructure and our transportation systems, right, with green technology and our energy and power grid, going to smart grid, um, and and so there are a lot of jobs that can be created out of that, right? For frontline communities who have, bore the brunt of our climate crises, right? And then we can also transition in a way that is, fair and smooth for our current energy workers because we get a lot of pushback from people who work in oil and gas because honestly it is their livelihood, right? And so when they feel the livelihood is threatened, they're gonna stand against change. But
Yeah.
if we can make them a part of the solution, right, and ensure that there's a smooth transition, and they are part of this new clean economy, then we can move forward together. And Oklahoma has the opportunity to be at the forefront of that because we were the oil capital of the world, and we have so many energy companies here.
Yeah, we can be the clean energy capital of the world as well. And
Exactly.
I don't fully understand why oil companies just don't start transitioning. I mean,
Yeah.
some of them are worried about competition, but this is what our country
Yeah.
capitalism is built upon.
Right. And we have Wall Street, Wall Street financiers and
Mhm.
investors already divesting right from oil and gas and dirty technologies because they see what's coming, right?
Mhm.
And so they're starting to do that. So if you're an oil and gas company and you're not thinking about transitioning, and then you're not thinking about the future of your business because you're going to go
Yeah.
out of business. You're going to lose access to the capital markets. You're not going to be able to fund your company and whatever new ideas that you have. Or your new ideas need to be green ideas and clean technology. That's where the capital is flowing, right? And so if you don't do it, the market forces are moving that way, and they're going to force your hand, right? And
Yeah.
so we need to get ahead of it.
I mean, politically, it's smart too. Our generation and the younger generation don't want to do that. They don't invest in dirty oil. So for businesses and politicians, it's the smart way of going, and it's the right way of going.
Exactly, exactly,
So
exactly. But, it's like, it's like, a lot of times in our corporate world, the culture is very short term, right? And it's day trading. And so, folks are like, I'm just going to ride this horse until it bucks me, and then I'll do something. I'll cross that bridge when it gets there. But, we need to have vision. That's where visionary leadership comes.
yeah,
Um, and we need to think about the future and think about our kids. Not just you got to think about got to think beyond your own generation, and you got to plant seeds, right? Um, to grow trees under whose shade you may not be able to sit under,
yeah,
right? Your kids and the future generations are going to benefit from it.
yeah. So let's see here. So you talked about a post earlier about getting voters to turn out. What do you think are effective motives to invigorate voters to come out and vote for you or anyone else running for government?
Yeah. Well, I'll say this in this moment, in this season that we're in, um, if you, and I don't want to be controversial, but like, if you don't get off your butt and go register to vote and go to the polls and vote, I don't know what's wrong with you, right?
Yeah,
Like, I don't know what else can motivate you to vote, right? Trump being in office and doing all the shenanigans that he's doing, right? Having a global pandemic that has affected all of us, right? That has killed over 100,000 people, right? And affected all of our lives, right? People losing their jobs, businesses having to go out of business. Even if you're a millennial who don't care about all that, you're having to stay home and can't go out and see your friends, right? And then on top of that, the unrest that is happening and, people protesting all across our streets and all across our nation, right? Like, if that doesn't put a fire under you to go and vote, you really have to, reevaluate your priorities, right? So with that said, I think we have to continue. Those of us who are civically engaged and civically minded, and especially running for office, we have to make the case, right, for people to vote,
yeah,
and we have to give people a reason to vote. Because a lot of times people feel like they don't have a reason to vote, and they're having to choose. They're tired of having to choose between, right, the best of two evils, as people put it, right? And so also understand that voting is a right, and you have the right to vote, and you have the right not to vote, right?
mhm,
I would encourage you to exercise that right to vote because I think your vote is important. And in a democracy, if you don't vote, then you're giving away your power, right? A voteless people is a powerless people, and so you have to exercise your right to vote. or else then you just have nothing left but to be helpless, right, and hopeless, and to complain and to post on social media. And who wants to do that, right? And not be a part of making a change and making a difference. And so I hope that everything that we've gone through has shown people that politics matters, leadership matters, who's in power matters at the national level and at the local level and at the state level, right? And they are there because people got up and registered to vote and went and cast their vote for those people. And if we don't agree with those people, we want new people and new voices, then we can go and register and we can actually cast our ballots for the people that we want, right?
Mhm.
And we can keep fighting for change. And so for me, I'm going to try to do my best to make that happen. And I'm gonna, our campaign is working with you know, technology and companies who help make registering to vote very easy,
Mhm.
and get actually there's an app that identifies households who have individuals living there who are not registered to vote, and we can go and canvass and knock on those doors, and if those folks agree, we can send them prepaid postage, and a voter registration application that's pre-filled out, right, with their name and information, and all they have to do is sign it and then put it in the mail, right?
Mhm.
And so using those kinds of tools to help, make it simple and easy for people to vote. And then once election day comes, right, ensuring that people are actually getting out to vote. Companies like Uber and Lyft are actually giving people free rides, right, on election day. Here in Tulsa, we have an organization called 918 Votes that's giving people free rides, right, to go out and vote. So there's no excuse, and we're trying to eliminate the barriers to voting, right? So
I disagree a little bit with no excuse. People have jobs and voter suppression in certain areas.
true.
Definitely lack of voting far too long. People don't feel like there certain people are representing them
All right.
as well. So I think those are certain issues as well. But yes, like people I know just don't want to talk about politics, and kind of boggles my mind. Like this affects everyone and affects your life. Like
Right.
this is like so important, and like I just think as a country, and one of the lights that we're going through this dark part of our country is if you vote and you want a certain change, you can cause that change.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't necessarily even have to be with the Democratic Party. It can be Republican Party as well. Both can approve as parties and seek a better future for our country. So
Right.
I think voting does matter. I think uh, politicians definitely need to have platforms that people can believe in, that people represent them as
Right.
well. I think politicians, local especially, need to focus on giving people better access to voting. Even do you agree with a national voting day or something along those lines?
Yes, yes, we have to be uh, so progressive in when it comes to voting and giving people the opportunities to vote and giving them every opportunity to vote. Right? We want more people voting, so we should have automatic, registration. We should make voting day a national holiday. All right, so that, like you said, people have to work and they have to, go to, make ends meet, and that can sometimes get in the way. Um, and we need to make it as easy to vote as possible. And unfortunately, we have a lot of Republican, states that are governed by Republican leaders who are passing laws that are intentionally geared towards trying to prevent people from voting, right? And that is so un-American, right? That is undemocratic. And so that is one of the areas that I want to focus on as well.
Yeah. Can,
Um,
can you elaborate with saying that?
yeah,
The
yeah. So
scenarios that
yeah,
these
so
certain.
there are states that are passing voter ID laws, all right, in order to be able to go and vote. And they know that poor people, people who are living in poverty, or Black and brown people are more than more than other demographics, the ones who would not have those voter IDs, right? And so they passed those laws not to prevent voter fraud, because the data has shown that voter fraud is very minuscule, right? But they're passing those laws because they want to prevent those folks from voting, because they know those folks are usually voting for the Democratic Party, right? And so they passed the law under the auspices of, oh, we're trying to prevent voter fraud, right? But we know that is not the case. And even when it comes to mail-in ballots, right? The president, during the time of pandemic, wants to prevent states from, passing laws that enable everyone to vote through mail. And he says he's against that because of voter fraud.
No,
Right?
I was about to say that.
But that is ridiculous, because there's nothing has shown, the facts do not bear that out, right? That there's voter fraud, by voting through mail. And in fact, the president himself votes by mail, and in previous elections, he's always voted by mail. So he wants to deny other people a right that he has and has exercised himself. And so those are the kinds of things, right, that we also need to tackle and address in order to build, a freer country and a thriving democracy.
I think President Trump kind of gave a game away a little bit and said that if more people voted, Republicans would never win again. I disagree a little bit, but I mean, then
they know when the voter, but it's been shown that when voter turnout is high, it benefits Democrats. But that is not a reason to suppress the vote. That is a reason to make a better case, right?
What I meant is like, well, not everyone's just going to vote for it, even if it's high voter turnout. Not everyone's going to vote for a Democrat if they don't feel like that person represents them as well. And like we were talking about, then if you're not representing the people, then you need to have contact with the people and get earn their vote, essentially.
Exactly.
So we're about to wrap up. I had a couple more questions, and that's pretty much. So I don't know if you seen a video, but in Saigon, of the corporation called Boston Dynamics. It's they make robots, essentially.
Okay.
And they in this video I saw, Saigon, they're using a robot, kind of like a dog robot, to tell people to vacate the park with the coronavirus issue. So if you do get elected, and a bill is on the floor for police using that type of technology or different type of technology, do you support or do you not support that?
So I mean, using technology to tell people to vacate their premises,
like robotic. I'm talking more in the future, but like things like that, robotic technology that can surveil communities more. Do you support or things like that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what makes America great, if I could use that word, or a place where a lot of folks in other countries, like my parents, a place that they want to come, is because we are a freer society, right, than a lot of other societies. And we espouse values, right, that value people's freedoms and people's privacy and people's liberty. And so that is a huge American value, and it must be protected at all costs, because if we lose that, we cease to become America. And that, by the way, that is what is so dangerous about some of the actions of our president, when he starts acting like a strong man, right? And it's unrecognizable in terms of the kind of country that we want. And so when it comes to artificial intelligence, when it comes to our technology, we have to always prioritize American values over, right, innovation and technology and efficiencies, right, or profit motives. And so yeah, so that is what I'm about, and I will not support any advancement of any technology that surveils people, takes away the privacy rights of individuals, right? Not even in the name of right efficiency or health and safety,
Yeah.
right? We need to exhaust all human capacity um, in order to make that happen, right? In order to protect people's health and livelihood before we resort to technology. Technology should only enhance, right, our freedoms and our livelihoods, not take them away.
Yeah. Things like that kind of worry me. And that would be a really bad road we would be going down if we use that type of technology in the future. That's why I
Exactly.
wanted to bring it up. And
Yeah. It's interesting because, you read a lot of news articles about how other countries have been handling the pandemic. And there are some societies like China, right, that are not as free as ours, and they've been surveilling their citizens, and so perhaps they espouse, they say, well, we've been able to do contact tracing, very easily. Well, you've been able to do that because you've been surveilling your citizens, right? And they've been living under a regime that is not free. And so we shouldn't look at that and say, oh, well, we need to be like China and surveil our citizens because it will help us with contact tracing. No, I reject that, right? We can do contact tracing and still protect the privacy and
yeah,
freedoms of our citizens.
yeah, we shouldn't fear our government. The government should fear us. They should work for us, not the other way around. And I think we've kind of forgotten that as a country. So that's pretty much all I have. Do you have anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
Man, well, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed this conversation. And I just want to encourage your audience to ensure you register to vote. I think this Friday is the last day to get registered to vote for the primary election that's happening on June 30th. I will be on the ballot, Kojo Asamoa-Caesar, running for Congress in Oklahoma's first district. And so I would appreciate your vote and love your vote. Vote for a new voice to represent Oklahomans, a progressive voice, a voice that is going to be for all people. I see myself as a leader who is a public servant and interested in serving the public instead of serving myself. And so I would encourage you to exercise your right to vote. And I would appreciate it if you voted for Kojo Asamoa-Caesar on June 30th. And then I will, if I win, I face off with my Republican opponent on November 3rd. And current representative is a one-term incumbent, Kevin Hearn. We want to make him a one-term representative and come November. So yeah, so thank you for having me. I appreciate it. You can find out more information about me and my campaign at kojoforcongress.com. That's KOJOFOR Congress.com. Follow my page on Facebook and Twitter at Kojo for Congress. And you can reach out to me on those platforms if you have any questions as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So this is Uprising.
Stop. Uprising.